This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from The Mortal Instruments, Kingdom of Ash, Tower of Dawn, and the Serpent and Dove trilogy. Mentions also include The Vampire Diaries, ACOTAR, and the MCU. There are also general discussions surrounding grief and loss.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And we have literally not 6 minutes ago finished Clockwork Princess. This is Jessica's first time dealing with the epilogue. And Jess, I have to ask, I promised, who are you in love with?
I can't pick. I kept thinking about it because I was like, the beginning of the epilogue, I was like, it's Will. It's Will. And then it was just like, or is it Jem? Jem's loved her for 100-something years. I just don't even know if I can talk about it right now. Maybe we'll talk through it and I'll have a final answer. She's had two great loves and they're just so different. But doesn't mean she loves either of them any less. You know, it's like when you have multiple best friends and you're you love each of your best friends in a different way because sometimes different ones will bring out a different part of you. That doesn't mean you love one person less. It's just you love them very differently. I'm a mess. I'm so sorry. I'm still and it was I remember I started spiraling in the epilogue, and it brought me back to the beginning of Clockwork Princess, and I was spiraling then, before I even knew. I'm sorry.
Well, all I can think of is what you said to me when we started this was, I don't think I'll cry.
I didn't. I said there's no other story, no other author who can get me the way I've cried in Sarah. But this one is just, it's so different in how it affects you. Before this just felt like you were reading the epitome of Greek tragedy from the beginning.
Oh no.
No, I think I'm good for now.
You're good? Well, yeah. This epilogue obviously is famous for just fucking you up. And it does. So there's a line in the epilogue that people lose it at.
Is it the one that you were sending me TikTok reactions for?
Yeah, I think so. But do you know... Did you have a specific cry in the epilogue?
It went through waves. I stopped because I did one of my toxic book traits is when I'm really into a book, when I want to torture myself more, and I'm sure a therapist would love to dissect this. I read because I also do the audio. I will listen to the audio while I'm reading it, so I'm getting hit to tenfold. And it went in waves. There were parts where I think I couldn't even read the words because I was just sobbing. Just her life with Will, and then all of it. And then I thought I stopped, and then when you found out that Jem found a way to come back for every pivotal moment in their lives, that broke me again. It was just, it's all so beautiful. And before even knowing the epilogue, I had sent you a video earlier saying, oh my god, if he's a silent brother, he can't have music, and he loves music, and I broke there too, and that was before knowing the epilogue, and it's just holy shit, holy crap, like this is, oh, it breaks you, like, fuck anybody else who talks shit, like, okay, I get it, I know people are going, I get there are authors that are problematic, and you have to acknowledge that, and people do their own research, what have you, but that doesn't eliminate the emotions that they can evoke. There, I said it. We're going to get hate. People are going to cancel us.
Welcome to the fandom. Welcome to the Shadowhunter fandom. It's like this. We're sad all the time.
Rightfully so. Rightfully so. At one point, through her whole journey, I was like, there's going to be a point where she, like, maybe she'll say, which she does, she kind of did, she sacrificed herself, not knowing what the outcome might be. I feel like it's like you don't, but it wasn't for, like, one or the other, it was for, like, for everybody. I don't even know where we're going to start with this episode.
I'll start with Will Herondale's epic line. I am catastrophically in love with you.
Broke me. How do you not? What a line. What a freaking line.
Herondale's, they have good lines. Yeah, it's just, okay. Yeah, God. The line that breaks me in the epilogue is all of her remembering, like, of Will and her life with him. But the line that breaks me is when she says that she has forgotten
the color of his eyes.
Yeah.
I feel like that one part was upset because it reminded me of when people talk about their own losses. That's a part where it spirals, where it's like, whether it's the eyes or their voice or their, and you know, and sometimes in some way, us now in 2020, we are very fortunate that if we have videos, if we have, you know, voice memos or what have you, we can listen to those if we're feeling like there are certain, like, voicemails that I have on my phone that I won't get rid of. Like, they're there forever. I don't care if it's been 10 years, or I have videos or photos, but this is the 1800s. Like, she doesn't get that. And then he died in like 1937. So she didn't have that, you know? It's just like that moment where she's like, I can't remember his voice or his eyes. And then you think of, like, maybe things that you've gone through, and you're just like, oh my gosh, you know, that I never want to have that feeling, you know?
Well, and then as long as we're just going to be sad, Tessa says, like, right away, Tessa says, like, Jem he's mortal. Like, I'm going to have to do this all over again.
I texted you that when he had black hair. I go, he's not Brother Zachariah anymore. So this is post Mortal, like the sixth book of the Mortal Instruments. This is post that epilogue.
It's all very, very sad.
And then you know my love for Magnus, and the fact that she and I understand Tessa's decision after Will died. She's like, and it goes with that saying that a lot of people say, like, no parent should ever have to go through the loss of their child, because, like, typically circle of life, that's not how it's supposed to be. So I can see why she's like, I need to remove myself, because this is, and you know, and she goes to Magnus, and I love their friendship, and you just know it's just gonna grow from there. And then he's just, and he says it, he goes, the first one's always the hardest. And she's like, the first one, and like the first person you fall in love with. And this is like, and we also know Magnus now too. And it just, but it's so different, because the love that her and Will had, I would love to be saying, like, it's a once in a lifetime love, and it's a once in a lifetime love for them, because she also has another once in a lifetime love with Jem.
But also, you know, like, Jem and Will also have like this bond too. Right. So it's not like it's perfect. It's perfect throuple, like, material.
I have said I want them in a polyamorous. Nobody would be upset. There would be no jealousy. And even when Jem sent Will off, like he's like, if I can't be there, I'm so glad that there's somebody else who loves her as much as I love her, you know? And it's the one instance where I feel like Will would be so happy that Tessa is with, like, if there's any, but you know how you see those TikToks where it's like, oh, people will be saying like, my husband would say, she would want your husband, she would want you to move on. And I'm always like, no, I won't. Like, I'm stalking your ass. It's just such a special, different love that he's like, you know what? I'm glad that they're getting their time now because look at how fulfilled she made my life. I almost wish he died in battle and not had like this full life.
Well, and that's the thing you were saying, like, oh no, like everything you're like, oh no, with Will, and then
I kept saying, oh my god, this is foreshadowing. He's gonna die in the battle or whatever.
And it was foreshadowing, but just a tragic death, but like not really. He died, you know, loved in old age, accomplished, and you know, surrounded by family and friends with Tessa and Jem. Like, he had a fantastic life. So, but what you brought up is now is the perfect time. So what I have done for everybody listening is I have screenshot pages from the Mortal Instruments. This is the wedding reception of Clary's mom, and it's the introduction of Clary and Tessa. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send these pages to Jessica, and she is going to read them. And, you know, through the magic of editing, this will be like instant. It will be instant. And then, so yeah, we will probably cut here and then pick up with Jess's reaction to this. So through the magic of editing, we are picking back up, and where we are picking back up, Jess has read the pages. It's like 12 pages that I screenshot on my phone and sent to her from Heavenly Fire with the Tessa and Jem and Clary kind of interaction, and Jess through a different lens. How does that hit? You've already read that, so now what is it like for you?
Now I like the epilogue. You know what I was thinking when I was reading Clockwork Princess? I was like, finally, an epilogue that I actually like, even though I'm sobbing through it. And then, because every other epilogue, I was just like, ugh, I was over it. I was, you know what it is? I just wish it wouldn't have been an epilogue. It just would have been integrated more into the book. I think that's what it was, because it felt like it was rushed. Now, Heavenly Fire epilogue is my new favorite epilogue. I mean, aside from the Clockwork Princess.
So I think before we get into like what actually happens in Clockwork Princess, because we've kind of just skated around it, this is your 9th Shadowhunter book.
Oh, crap.
How do you feel about the Shadowhunter universe?
Well, obviously I like it more than I was expecting. There's just so, I don't want to say it's weird. I feel like this series, the Infernal Devices part of Shadowhunters, hits so hard than the Mortal Instruments ever could. I can see why that had to be done first. I feel like, and maybe we touched on this on Clockwork Prince, that once you go through it, I guess through release order or what have you, then you get to like do all the different tie-ins. It's like doing the whole MCU. You read it release date and then you do it chronological. And I know I said this with the beginning of Throne of Glass, where to reread Throne of Glass knowing what you know, or if you went from Throne of Glass, Crown of Midnight, Assassin's Blade, take everything you know from Assassin's Blade and then restart your reading journey, that is wild. So I had no intention, maybe for like books 4 and 5, of rereading the Mortal Instruments, but now I kind of want to, or at least like anything with Magnus and Jem.
Well, and that's the thing, like knowing what we know, and what we know is that Jem made his first appearance in 4 very casually. He's just mentioned as like, oh, that
one of the like
person,
a silent brother, yeah.
Like that person is Brother Zachariah, and then he comes into his own in book 5, and then he becomes, you know, he's back to Jem in book 6, and like so knowing that. Okay, so just put it to rest. How do you feel about how I told you to approach this series? How do you feel about my spoilers, all of it?
I think I told you earlier this week that I absolutely love the way that, because I understand that they were spoilers, because if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have put the pieces together, because I'm not the smartest, you know, person. But it must have been this huge reveal for the readers to find out, especially like upon release, or, you know, if you don't have you guiding them, that Jem is Brother Zachariah. I'm glad that I know, because I think I would have read it. I would have enjoyed it. It would have been fine, but I wouldn't have been as invested. I don't know if that's the right word. Clearly the whole reading experience was changed for me. It also helped, like, if you think of the Mortal Instruments, that you had to spoil the big spoiler. It helped me overcome that whole, oh my gosh, they're brother and sister. They're not brother and sister. I have no complaints, but when have I had a complaint when it comes to your guidance with reading? Except that I was just like, I was sending you reaction videos, laughing and sobbing and just saying fuck you as I continue everything, but it was all out of love.
My favorite reaction video that you sent me was you starting off laughing, and then you processed something, and then you started crying as you were laughing, and then you turned into a sob. That was kind of my favorite thing. And so again, I spoiled that Jem is Brother Zachariah on purpose so that you would make this connection, and so that we could go back and revisit these pages, and so you could make this connection between these two series, right? Like, because that's important. And then what does Tessa do? Like in Heavenly Fire, Tessa gives Clary the codex that Charlotte had given to her. Like, oh my God. And then she gives Clary the Herondale ring. She said, this is James Herondale's ring. And James was her son. So, like, oh my God, right? Like, and the first time you're reading that, you're like, I don't know who these people are. Like, whatever. Like, it's not important. But now it's like, oh my God. And
every little thing is like, it's every little thing is so important. And sometimes I go, there's so many names. And I remember with reading Throne of Glass, you just said, look, don't worry about the characters unless they have a name. And then I was reading the Mortal Instruments, and I go, it's taking me so long to go through it because there's so many names. I'm under the Throne of Glass mindset that every name means something, and you were like, don't worry about that. And now I feel like I have to worry about that, because every name, because even when they were talking about, they were, you know, they had the council, they were doing the whole meeting with the Shadowhunters, and they talked about Amalia Morgenstern, and I go, I know that name. Like, she might not be a bad person, but like everybody else sure as hell will be, you know.
Okay,
but I know that now.
So this is what I was kind of talking about briefly. Jess, we were talking about it privately, that the reason that I love Shadowhunters so much is because I love the Infernal Devices so much. And because of that, I've read everything else because I just love the world. And because the immortal characters are threaded so well, like throughout all of it, so that you have like constants in a changing world.
It feels so organic how it's done too. It doesn't feel forced, and I don't know, like that's just the magic of her writing style.
I mean, it's wonderful, but like the families and the world building being so complete, and like the politics being so thorough, as you said, like, you recognize the names, you recognize the places, you recognize the, like, mythology and the ceremonies and stuff, so that when you pick up any Shadowhunter book, knowing that all that stuff is consistent, it's like revisiting Friends, and it's comforting, and that's why, like, all of them are my comfort books. Even though this one is devastatingly sad.
Are they all this sad?
They're not all this sad. This one is.
But I feel like that the caveat is they're sad, but they're not this sad.
They're all, yeah. The ones in LA are sad too. But like this one is the one that is like the tragedy. Like this is the tragic one. Just because, like Will is the tragedy here, right? You could say like Tessa is also the tragedy, but also Jem had a tragedy too. Like, okay,
they all did.
Let's start at the beginning, because the beginning is fun. The beginning is funny. The beginning is Lightworms. The beginning is Benedict Lightworm or Lightwood succumbing to demon pox, and demon pox is just funny.
I mean, granted, I know we should start at the beginning, but in the epilogue when she's revisiting all of the memories and like they taught their kids the demon pox song and then they would sing it around Sophie, and Sophie's like, what are you doing? And all the kids were just like, like thinking it was like this hilarious thing because, you're getting, basically Aunt Sophie all riled up and everyone's just laughing. And you know how kids are. You tell them not to do something and then they just want to do it more because they love the reaction, and they made it this family thing.
And he also wrote books on it. Like Like, of course he did. Of course he did. That's why we love him so much. But so we have demon pox, and Jem comes in and he's like, well, it's your two favorite words. He's like, demon pox. It's so great. And then Gabriel, I do feel bad for Gabriel, but Gabriel is like, my father's a worm. He turned into a worm. And everyone's like, we know he's a piece of shit. We know he's a worm. You're like,
not figuratively.
He's like, he's a 20-foot worm. It's so funny. Oh my God. I love it so much. But obviously, poor Gabriel.
It took a long time for me to warm up to Gabriel, but talking it out from the beginning, and he is the eldest son. He had a sense of...
Oh, that's Gideon. Gideon's the oldest.
Gideon was... I always took it that Gabriel was the over... Okay, yeah. Then I retract everything I was about to say. Yeah. Never mind. I digress.
No, he's the younger. Yeah. Oh my God. I feel so bad for Gabriel. So Gabriel comes to the Institute, right? And he's like, my dad's a worm. So everybody goes off, right? But Tessa is in her wedding dress, right? because she's getting married to Jem, and oh my God. But then we have the fantastic interaction. We get to Lightwood Manor in Chiswick, and they're like, Tessa, you can't fight. You're in a wedding dress. Even Will couldn't fight if he's in a wedding dress. And Will's
it has nothing to do with you're a woman. Nobody could fight in that.
Yeah, and Will's like, I probably couldn't, but I'd be a radiant bride. It's like, oh, you would. He has another line like that too. He's like, I'd be a stunning woman. It's like, he probably would.
Oh yeah, it was in chapter 23 or 24 because he was formally trying to court Tessa, and she was over it because she was just like, you're not being the Will that I basically fell in love with. Get your shit together. And that's when they were able to get their banter back on track, because he's being all, I don't want to say stodgy, but just being formal and, being a gentleman of the 1800s and not Will the Shadowhunter.
Love him. I love him so much. Okay. So we meet Tatiana, and Tatiana is the Lightwood sister, and her husband is dead, and she has all of this weird drama. Okay, whatever. And then there's a battle, and they kill Benedict.
Right.
And there's a lot of guilt there because Gabriel and Gideon are fighting him, and later Gabriel has this whole thing. He's like, if that demon wasn't my dad, then where is he? I keep thinking he's gonna walk in. He has all of this guilt, and again, I feel bad for Gabriel. And so there's a couple like plots going on here, right? There's like the subplot of the Consul
Right.
Wayland, and all of that.
The Shadowhunter politics.
Yeah,
subplot.
the politics subplot. There's the Will and Tessa subplot, the Jem and Tessa subplot, and then there's like the overarching subplot of like
automatons.
The automatons, like Mortmain. Yeah, that's like the main plot. So there's like a lot going on here. And then, Cecily is there, and I just love them so much. So Jess, like, as your 9th Shadowhunter book.
That's wild. When you say that number, it's wild to me.
I know. Who would have thought? But as your 9th Shadowhunter book, do you see anything like consistent? Do you like the consistency in the world building? Like this, so this is like old timey. So we get like old timey versions of things. I bring this up. Like we get the creation of the portal.
I do like, there's a lot of stuff that how do I there's a lot of stuff from these books that you see the origin stories of from, and I say these books, the Infernal Devices being the origin story for a lot of the things we see in the Mortal Instruments. You have the portal key, you have the history of the necklace that senses demon, the necklace that Magnus gave to Will, and then he gave to his sister that senses if demons were coming to approach. You find out where the Herondel birthmark essentially, where that stems from, and
fucking in a cave.
Why not? It's like literally, see, there's such a difference between end of the world sex here and like the bullshit end of the world sex in Serpent and Dove. Okay, two very different things, two very different loves, and one was toxic, the other wasn't.
There is a joke about this. So when Jace and Will are eventually like in heaven together, and Jace will be like, man, it took me like 6 books to get laid, and Will's like, fuck you, it took me 3. It's just a funny like
6 books.
Yeah.
I thought you said 6 pokes, and I was like, I don't know if we should really be bragging there.
Yeah. 6 books, yeah. It's so funny. It's just one of those like funny. There's so many like Shadowhunter in jokes, and like that is one of them. Another Shadowhunter in joke was the ducks. The ducks were repeated over and over again.
They said it again, like it wasn't just the one. And she even says it at the end. She says they joke about the ducks in like chapter 23 or 24, I think.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, and then like Jace jokes about ducks, and we just love that. So the big plot points in this. So Jem and Tessa are like racing and desperate to get married, right? Because why? Because Jem is dying.
They're racing the clock, like his clock at this point.
Yeah, and unbeknownst to all of them, what is Jem doing?
He's not taking. No, he is taking the Infen.
He's taking a shitload of Yin-Fen.
Because he said he'd rather live a full life, even if it's short, to have a full life with Tessa than like this long, drawn out, sickly, unfulfilled life.
Yeah, it's like there's more to life than not dying. Yeah, because he was taking just enough to not die and a little bit before battle to, give him energy, but not enough to live. Yeah,
right.
And he wanted to live. And everything Jem says is just like, oh my God. But like what he says to Will when Will confronts him about this, and he's just like, I was better. And I told Tessa, like, your love has made me strong. Your love has made me better. And then I had an attack, and then I wasn't better. And how could I tell her when I had built it up like this? And like all of that. And
you don't want her to like think, and we have to like remember that this is the 1800s. So everything is very, so much is based on perception. He goes, I didn't want to put that on her to think, like you said, I built up this whole thing that her love is the reason I am strong, when that really wasn't the case. But I think we all want to believe that at some point or another. And then to say, I didn't want her thinking that her love
our love wasn't strong enough. And I couldn't put that. Like, they all have such guilt amongst each other that if they just put that aside, I mean, I understand that that's like part of the whole, you know, vulnerability and masochist and like imposter syndrome we all carry, especially amongst these characters. But if they just like put that guilt aside, like, things would be so much easier.
You know, it would, but you know,
that's just real life.
Yeah, that's just us in real life. But characters in books, how do you feel about Tessa? I told you in Prince that people have like thoughts about Tessa.
I like her still.
Mm-hmm.
I like her still. I don't know if that's a hot take because I'm not on Shadowhunter TikTok. I don't know a lot of Shadowhunter accounts. But I like her. I don't understand the criticism. I sent you a reaction video because that's all we've been really doing this week is reaction videos. Perhaps we'll post some on TikTok. But I said, you know, everybody craps on her, but I like how direct, like, I feel the more assured that she's become in herself and her place amongst the Shadowhunters, even though she's not a Shadowhunter herself, she has become more assured in the decisions that she makes. She's not looking to other people to say, like, is this okay or is this okay? She's kind of just, you know what, do it first, ask for forgiveness later if that's what it comes to. I really respect that. The part that broke me amongst many, one of them is when she was talking to Jem and they were severing their bond, and he's basically like, let's make this pact that we'll see each other for an hour every year. And well, who knows, I actually might say this without crying. They're talking through this pact and she's so logical about it. She goes, you know what, I get it, I don't have to like it, but seeing you 1 hour every year is so much better than visiting your gravestone whenever I want. And I mean, who wouldn't want that opportunity to see somebody they care about, to say, you know what, if it's one or the other, you have to pick. This is the lesser of the evils. I'll take it, you know? And when even when she's battling Mortmain and she digs into her clockwork necklace, her Clockwork Angel necklace, and she thinks of everybody else and she thinks of bigger picture. She's not thinking, she shapeshifts into an actual angel. You know, I think she's smart. I think she's practical. I think she's logical. I don't understand why people hate on her unless it's just a whole Bella Edward Jacob thing of she should have picked this person and not that person, because it's so much more than that.
I feel the criticism is that she doesn't really do much, which I disagree with, and that her like main focus is like, you know, an object for boys to like fight over. But I would argue that they don't fight over her.
I don't think I'm with you with there. Where's the fighting? And if we actually, like, if you break it down, neither one of them, and they talk about that. I can't remember if it's during their like bromance speech. I think it is with the bromance chapter of them like coming forward with their emotions to be like, you know, Will even said, I was so focused on, you know, myself, working on me, trying to be a better person for her, and I was so self-involved that I wasn't looking at the world around me. And if I had, I would have known that you were in love with her, and I wouldn't have done anything. And in the same respect, Jem even said, you were off doing your own thing, you're my parabatai, you're my best friend. Like, if I wasn't so self-involved in my feelings and like focusing on Tessa and like acclimating her, I would have also seen you were so in love with her. And everybody else in the Shadowhunters Institute are all watching this happen. They all know that they like, but nobody's saying anything, you know? And I think it was just, like you said, nobody ever fought over her. If anything, I mean, and they loved they love each other as brothers, as more than that. Like, they say that they, as Parabatai, they are one soul. They are each other, essentially. And I think it would have been a beautiful
polyamorous relationship. Laura, you said a hot take on TikTok the other day saying, you know, everybody talks about Stefan, Elena, and Damon. She's like, what? You said no, that's not what the three people should be arguing about are having Tessa, Jem, and Will all in one relationship.
It is harder to me. Like, and it's even, you could even argue, like, there's immortality is in play in both of them. You know, there's like years.
You want to talk about, there's another one. You want to talk about siblings. Stefan and Damon are siblings. Like, let's, you know, if people want to like crap on Shadowhunters, let's crap on everything, you know?
Yeah, let's
don't pick and choose where you want your rules to apply.
There's so many hills that the Shadowhunter fandom can die on. Like,
is there a favorite one that you have?
Is there a favorite one that I have?
Or have we not visited it yet?
No, I don't think so. It's just, I guess my favorite hill is that, like, the books are good. Like,
I always, when I think of the way people rate books, I'm not somebody who rates it on like, oh, it was very intellectual, or it was, you know, it created this stimulating conversation, which actually it does with us because we've been really down with the patriarchy this week. Yeah. But if it evokes any sort of visceral reaction or emotion, how can you, I mean, I can't, maybe I need to shut my mouth because there are books that I viscerally hate and I don't like. That doesn't mean they're good. I'm going to stuff a lot in my head.
But you're talking about a visceral reaction. Like, you were in the middle of the park, like, screaming about the consul and how he was treating Charlotte. And so take that. Like,
so it was basically, I was so annoyed with the consul because that finally, Charlotte was just doing her own thing, and then Josiah Wayland is all, you can't do that. You can't do things just because you want to. You have to go through me first. And she goes, okay. So she starts doing that, and she starts communicating with him more. She takes that constructive criticism, and she's like, well, I still, obviously I want to still be successful in my role as at the Institute. Let me do what he's instructed me to do. So she goes, look, Will went on his own. I did not okay it. I wanted you to know that this is where we are. We have information on Mortmain. We need your assistance. We need assistance from the Clave. We need your approval as the council. We need to move forward with this. So then he writes back, basically, fix yourself, fix your mind, remember who you are. And it set me off because it was never about her going to permission. It was always about him and his power and his control. He's said it multiple times, oh, well, I thought her being married to Henry was going to like shape her up because God forbid a woman is in power, especially in the 1800s. I mean, even now, but that's a whole different conversation. And he was just denying her. Anyway, every time she asked for something from that, it was just, she was doing what he asked, and he still denied her. And I got so pissed. And I was just saying, this is why women just should be doing whatever we want anyway, because no one's going to listen to us until after it's done. And we're going to face the backlash if we ask for permission, and then we face the backlash if we don't. So, like, what the fuck does it matter at this point?
It was very satisfying when Council Josiah Wayland is murdered and killed at the end.
Absolutely.
It's just like,
Didn't
die.
you send me, that Loki meme that you send me about Benedict? I felt the same way.
Anyway.
So anyway, that's it. I felt the same exact way when he got decapitated by an automaton. I was like, finally. And what did I say? I said in my voice memo, I can't wait till an automaton crawls off your goddamn ass and kills you.
So, oh my God. Yeah. How do we feel about, Tessa being a Starkweather? How do you feel about that whole reveal? That whole reveal is like a lot of the book.
When I think about them, I think it was Clockwork Prince, when they went to see him initially, it reminded me, I go, that's why remember he was going to turn them away.
he didn't know why. He really didn't know why, but there was something familiar about her that drew him in, and he didn't even know. I thought it was really interesting. I liked knowing the background. I really appreciated knowing the background of how and why Tessa is the way she is. And, everybody says she's a warlock, but she's a special type of warlock. I feel like that's the closest name in the Shadowhunter world that they have for her. But for all intents and purposes, she isn't. She's a shapeshifter with additional abilities. But that's, everything needs a name. So they're like, we'll go with warlock-ish because of, I guess, like, where her family is.
Yeah, but
that doesn't make her a downworlder either.
Exactly. Exactly. The Shadowhunter blood is always dominant.
Right.
So her Shadowhunter side is dominated, even though her mother was like, in my head, I think of it as like unconsecrated. Like her mother was an unmarked Shadowhunter.
Which is what allowed her to be born, because her mother being unmarked, if her mother was marked, she would have been stillborn. But because her mother was taken away before all of the ceremonies and was switched out, at first I thought it was going to be, they were going to say a changeling, because that's typically what happens. And there was a reference to changeling in the Mortal Instruments. And then again, in the Clockwork Prince, we meet Hyacinth, who was a changeling. But I kept expecting to have Hyacinth circle back around. She just had such a dominant role that I really was expecting to see her come around again, and she didn't, and that threw me off.
Interesting.
Okay.
So how do we feel about... Okay, I'm trying to think of like the major like epic plot points that happen in this book. Because I have been so focused on, like, the epilogue because I never read it. So, like, what happens in this book?
Rightfully so. Honestly, I finished chapter 24 and I texted you because I let you know where I was at throughout the day, where I was wrapping things up. And like, okay, I'm at the end of 24. That's sweet. It's in a nice little ribbon. I could have been fine. I should have ended there. It's not as strong as an ending as the epilogue, but let's, that would have been fine. The epilogue just kind of brings, they say it, everything comes, like the last line, everything. Oh, wait. No, we're good. Everything comes full circle.
Everything comes full circle. I will say,
as I was reading, okay, I might start crying. As I was reading the epilogue, I immediately bought a first edition signed Cassie Clare.
Did you?
I did. I was like, oh, look, first edition signed Cassie Clare. Clockwork Princess with original cover. Yes, please. Click add to cart. This is what happens when you get adult money. So that was the first thing. And then as I was crying, and then there's in the right before the acknowledgments, after the epilogue, there's a whole like little paragraph that's called like Tessa's London or something. And I was just crying and I was like, can we do like a Infernal Devices vacation and go to London? You could come here for the day. We'll do all of our New York stops for like a Mortal Instruments tour. And then we can leave from JFK and go over to Heathrow. That was my other.
Obviously, of course. So I don't have a signed Classy Claire. I have just a first edition Clockwork Princess, but I'm looking at the dust cover on the inside and it is a family tree. And I just wanted to bring up.
I've been asking for this family tree, but you said you'll give it to me when the time is right. I don't know if it's yet.
I just wanted to bring up that, our Alec, that we know and love.
We love Alec.
His full name is Alexander Gideon Lightwood. And Isabel's full name is Isabel Sophia Lightwood. And we have lost Jess.
No.
Yeah. Isn't that just...
this is another author, especially when like the worlds are so detailed and intertwined. I need to know their storyboard map, because they have to have the strings and everything everywhere. I want to know if these ideas come from a seedling, if it's just a huge big picture thing and then you have to work it out. I need to know. Like, I need to understand people's process, because when it's so detailed like this, how? Because I'm lucky if I remember my lunch last week, which is probably just like coffee and seltzer. But
isn't that special? Like we know them. Like, you love Isabel, and now how special is it that her name, like,
not that I'll ever have kids, but like, I'm definitely not naming them after my family. Like, I'd name them after characters in these books.
Characters in a book. What the great line from Infernal Devices, like, when I don't know what to do, I picture myself as the character in a book. It's easier to know what they would do. God. It is so tragic. Okay, so Jessamine dies in this book, and that is something that I wanted to bring up. So Jessamine dies. She dies very, I would say, like, tragically. She dies in Will's arms. You know, just like all laid out after her stay in the Silent City. And, she says to Will, like, you're a terrible Welshman. And we find out why, all of that. But Jessamine comes back and Will talks to her as a ghost, because Herondales can talk to ghosts. So she says, like, she is going to stay here. It's part of her.
She had the choice. She had the choice, I thought. It was, it was either for her to move on, because Will even said, like, why are you still here? Do you not want to move on? And he goes, it's kind of ironic that you wanted to be the furthest away from the Institute and Shadowhunters, and yet here you are. And then she goes, yeah, well, she kind of like grew an affinity to it and all. And, she gets to overlook the Institute, which obviously, or maybe this isn't me just being presumptuous, that she'll be a reoccurring character at some point in the future.
Well, let me stop you right there. We have already met her in a way. They've spoken about her, and I'm going to tell you where. So, when Sebastian was attacking institutes,
right,
with the Endarkened, he was unable to breach the London Institute, because there was protection on the London Institute that even the occupants were unaware of.
Huh.
Who do you think that is?
Then it was Jessamine.
It was Jessamine.
But then how come, bigger question, like, then why doesn't every institute have a nearly headless Nick, basically?
Like, everyone have a ghost?
Yeah.
Because not everyone, well, they might, but not everyone can, like, see them, right? So, like, Herondales are documented to being able to see ghosts. There are no Herondales left except for Jace now. Yeah. So, like, Jace wasn't in the London Institute. So, like, who would know that there was a ghost there,
Right. But, like, what about the other institutes? Like, if there was if there was a ghost at all the other institutes, wouldn't those ghosts have been protecting them? Is what I'm at. These are my questions. These are
good questions. These are good questions. But Jessamine protected the London Institute against Sebastian, and in doing so, protected Julian Blackthorn's uncle, saved his life. And now Julian's uncle is going to run the LA Institute with Julian and Emma Carstairs, and that is where Jem and Tessa are going.
Are off to. So we get to see them again.
Yes, Jem and Tessa show up in later books.
Like, they, like, trickle in and stuff.
Yeah, they dip in and out. And, of course, I told you Jem has his own little novella. Yeah. He has his own novella. Okay, so in what else happens in this book? In this book, so Jessamine dies.
And also nudges him to be like, how many more... I love her. She goes, how many more carriage rides can you bring this girl on? She could give you a tour of London herself.
Oh, it's so funny. She's
like, it's so good.
I'm courting her. I was courting her. It's like, oh, Will, sweet and awkward. Okay.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know if she loves me. What?
Oh my god.
What? Oh my gosh. Will Carstairs could happen. Will Herondale, your imposter syndrome is screaming.
I know that poor beautiful broken boy. Okay, so Tessa gets kidnapped, right? So like Jessamine dies.
Also, how many times can this girl get kidnapped? Like,
Well, this is the last time, right? Like,
thank God.
It's the big one. Like, yeah, Tessa gets kidnapped and Jem runs after her, right? Like Jem goes and he can't find her and he comes back and he says like she's gone and he collapses right there. And like that is the beginning of the end of James Carstairs. That moment right there in like the courtyard of everything. That's it. And oh my God, it's so fucking sad. And then he has the like talk with Jem about, or Will has the talk with Jem about like going to Carter Idris, and oh my God, just
I want to go there. It sounds so pretty.
I know, right?
I mean, I've never been to Wales in general, but
Wales is beautiful. Okay. So the narrator in this book does give Will a Welsh accent, and he gives
Ceci,
and I love it. I love the differentiation of the voice. Okay, so it just gets really painful from here.
It's all painful.
It's all painful. It's all painful. Jess, look at your notes. Like where
I forgot to take them. They were just wound up being reactions. So Will is going to go to Wales, but prior to all this, he's going there because Tessa's been taken. Well, also Mortmain, but like Tessa's been taken, and nobody knows this until they basically see Jem collapse. So after they are figuring out Jem's health, and after they have are we going to talk about the bromance talk that they have? It breaks your heart, but you love it so much.
It's like, what do you mean? What does Sophie mean? Like, that you're in love with Tessa? Like,
I like how everybody kept evading it. And Sophie didn't answer, and she just evaded the question. And he goes, but he saw her face, like the one time he was super coherent. And I mean, everybody just knew. And Sophie was even like, I don't want to betray anybody. So she's just, just being Sophie and be like, I'll take care of it. And he goes, is that what I know what you mean by that face or something? And then he asks Will when Will comes in. I mean, I think it really helps everybody in that moment for Jem to, I feel like it was that permission that everybody was looking for. Will was looking for that permission to go see Tessa. Jem had that reassurance that somebody else was going to be there for Tessa. It took a moment for, I can't remember at what point did he realize, because Tessa told him that she loves Will also. But not in that moment, no.
No, later.
Yeah, it was later. Which that part made me really sad too, because he asked her, he goes, did you ever love me? Like, there had to be a sliver of doubt, and, I just felt bad for him. But I digress. So we're back at the, basically, Jem goes, go get our girl, basically, after they have this beautiful bromance conversation. That's just, you're sobbing. You just love them both so much, and love in this book. And Will goes off. He's pushing Balios as hard as he can. That's the horse. And everybody is just basically tending to Jem 24/7 because he's basically in his final hours. And Will goes, he stays with the wolves at one point. We see Wolsey Scott again, and the wolves basically attack him unprovoked, and Will is just angry at the world, so he doesn't care. He's going to fight back, and it's well within his right because he was being attacked.
But why is he angry? It's because
because he finds out that his Parabatai rune has started burning, because that was how he found out that Jem had finally died, or so we think.
It's
He
so
died.
it's so fucking sad. Okay, pause right there. So, Jess, you were asking me about like the mechanics and like how Jem became like a silent brother. Like they went through it. Was that answered for you?
Yeah, it was answered. I mean, it was like it had to be basic. Like was my takeaway is the silent brothers wouldn't take him because he had the Yin Fen in his system. So it had to be in his absolute dying moments where there was a crossover of, you know, I get, if you think about it, like the way I kind of had to think of it is like when somebody is flatlining and right before you're resuscitating them, that's when the silent brothers had to kind of do the runes and all that stuff. But there's still a little bit in his system, which we find out, it'll prevent him from being like certain capabilities of being a full-fledged silent brother, but like that's just from a technical standpoint. He's still considered a silent brother. Why? Okay, how come everybody in the Institute was allowed to know that this was going to happen except Will and, well, Tessa wasn't there, so she didn't find out. But like, how come that, like, why was that? Was it more of a selflessness because Jem didn't think anybody would, like Will and Tessa would go if he presented this to them?
I think so. I think it was Will wouldn't go. Will wouldn't go if he knew that that's what Jem was going to choose. I also kind of think that maybe it was like staring down the like death is looming and you kind of have like that moment of like I don't want to die kind of thing, and like I will be here to be with the people that I love in any way that I can. In that,
well,
like,
I guess that's mentioned when Jem Charlotte is at Jem's bedside, and he goes, "My only regret is I won't see your child," or something.
I was sobbing there. He
goes, "I will stay alive for if that is what you request.
If you want, yeah.
But I don't want to fight anymore."
Yeah, he's like, "I'm tired. Like I don't want to. I don't want to fight anymore. I want to. You know, I wish I could be here and be with the baby. You'll be a wonderful mother." Just, oh my God, I was sobbing because then, like what we know, because the way that, you know, I had you read the story, like we know that Jem is a silent brother, and we know that they have like they're cold and they have like that glass between them and like emotions, right? So like, yes, he's there and he does see the baby, but he doesn't like.
They're very stoic. They're not supposed to be. I feel like that it's for Jem specifically, and maybe not all the silent brothers, that was his defense mechanism, because when you have Tessa going through these instances in the epilogue, when he comes, you know, it's almost like he is the exclusive silent brother to the Herondale family, because we know silent brothers aren't just, you know, they're doctors, they're physicians, they're priests, they're kind of all encompassing, and you see that a lot with this book as opposed to the Mortal Instruments, because they're very scary and very intimidating in the Mortal Instruments. And this one, it was like if there was a baby born, it was, you know, within this little clan, it was going to be Jem. And then when he finds out that they named their first kid after him, like, you can't tell me, like, they even say he turns away and hides his face because he doesn't want them to see, like, his emotions, because he is a silent brother. He's like, I gotta keep it, you know, he's trying here. He's trying really hard to be this, you know, the stoicism that comes with being a silent brother. And he can't, like, you know, I love Jem. A good person.
He's such a good person. And as Isabel Lightwood says, when did Brother Zachariah get hot? Isabel, he's always been hot.
He's always been hot, Isabel.
Hun, yeah. Always. He's always been gorgeous. Will's like suicide kind of fight with the wolves, and like Wolsey Scott and that whole like burying of the dagger and Will's like mad dash to the mountain Idris is just so, that is something that like, okay, so in 2020 it was announced that this series was picked up by like BBC BBC, like,
I completely forgot about that, but I remember how excited you were, and I was so happy for you. I shared in that excitement. I knew nothing about the books, but you go, no, if there's any network that could pick this up and should pick this up, it should be BBC.
Yeah, there's been like no movement on it like since that happened. Well, like COVID and stuff. Yeah, there's been no announcement, but like but specifically like the BBC doing Will's mad dash through Wales in like thunderstorms on horseback with like the lightning and the scenery. Like, can't you just see it? Like, oh my God, it'd be like Poldark. Just like, oh my God.
There's no other, there is no other network who not only deserves this series, but can do it justice.
Yeah, no, yeah. The BBC and like, 1, 2, 3, whichever one, the BBC is the perfect home for this. But oh my God, yeah. And Will's mad dash is just like, so you could just like see it with the music and his like shirt and his collar with his coat. Oh
Flappy,
my God, God. So amazing. And then Will gets to the mountain and then Will sees Tessa and they finally have sex and we get the birthmark. But before that, we get this really beautiful exploration of grief between the two of them. Will has to tell Tessa that Jem is dead and he holds her for like hours and hours and hours and she goes through like all of this and they end up having sex. And then she in the morning is just like, was like, I can't believe I did that. Like this like guilt that I have and like with Jem and like, who is this person? But Will is just like, ba-bam. But then of course, they're woken up by Magnus.
I love Magnus. Before we start talking about Magnus, I think part of that comes with she's a woman in the 1800s who just lost her virginity, which is like her virtue. I'm using air quotes, and she wasn't married. So I feel like that's where the guilt comes from. And then of course, yeah, she's probably thinking like, who am I? Like my fiance just died and here I am with this other person that I love. And any girl, she's like, is he regretting that we did this? Is he having second thoughts? A lot of people have these, thoughts that are going through, especially because they don't know what they are. They're just kind of, and she even says, she goes, I don't know what I'm doing, but my body's just like doing its own thing at this point. It's a lovely fade to black scene. I think it's a perfect example that not everything needs spice. Sometimes romance is just great. I think this goes back to, it's no stranger that I love the romance parts of these, of just books in general. I think it's sweet. There's nothing, it was, 3 and 2.5 books leading up until this point. Super slow burn. And I think it made it that much more special, and then how great is it that even after all of this, he's still like, I want to court you. I want to be very formal. I want to be a gentleman. And it's just courting doesn't exist anymore. And there's something very special that I can understand because it's been a very long time since I've read historical like romance and historical romance fiction that I can see the appeal even that much more because there is a tradition there that doesn't really exist anymore. It's changed. Things change with time. I get it, but there's just something special that you didn't have to put out to be liked.
Well, and Will's speech about being catastrophically in love with Tessa.
I mean, I know my next boyfriend. I'll do a reread, and if he sees me sobbing on the couch, not questioning me, but just like looking over at me and be like, I'm in love with this girl who's in love with fictional boyfriends, then I'm like, then I'll know he's written by a woman.
It's he's such a good, Will Herondale is such a good character, and his speech is so good. Like, Tess, I'm catastrophically in love with you. How do you? And with his black hair and his blue eyes, which the thing that breaks me about Tessa forgetting the color. Oh God, about Tessa forgetting the color blue of his eyes is that earlier in the books that she was wearing blue pansies in her hair, and she says that they are the exact color of his eyes. So like we as the reader know that they're pansy blue, but like it shows that like Tessa, it's faded for Tessa, and it's just, oh, yeah.
Spiral.
Yeah, I'm gonna spiral, but I'm gonna pull it together. So
after that moment, Magnus shows up. We're gonna talk about good things. We're gonna love Magnus.
Magnus, you know, I love Magnus, and Magnus has made reference to Henry in the Mortal Instruments. He's like, you know, I have met other Nephilim that have been ridiculed by the Clave and like called names, but they were genius and brilliant. You asked me if Henry died. Like, no, Henry didn't die. Henry's
I thought he died. Yeah, I thought he died in that moment where they were like and everybody kind of, I don't want to say they wrote him off, but they go like, Charlotte, we gotta go. Like we're losing here. We just need to retreat. And she's like, his heart is still beating. I'm not leaving him. And then like what I love about Magnus in this book is every time, you know, in the epilogue of Clockwork Angel, maybe it was the epilogue, there's reference how he goes, oh yeah, it was the epilogue, how Shadowhunters only use him. He only knows Shadowhunters because they use him. And then we obviously know from the Mortal Instruments, like he's just like tired of being used. But this affinity that he's created with the London Institute, with, you know, with Charlotte, with Henry, with Will, with Tasso, with everybody, you know that he's not feeling used. This is coming from like a kinship that he's developed with them. And I think that's so special because even Cecily, she goes, just get Magnus. She didn't know what he can do, but I think they always treated Magnus as a person and not something that they can, like, they weren't how some people could like, would be maybe opportunists when it comes to utilizing Magnus, and he was like a warlock for hire in a way. That was never the case with this true found family.
Well, yeah. And the thing with Henry, too, is that Magnus and Henry make the portal together.
Right.
Yeah, there was
skepticism because, you know, once Magnus realizes what Henry's doing, he goes, this is brilliant. You should be glorified. And he goes, the only person who talks to me like that is my wife, and she's like my number one hype man. And he goes, you're using the right runes, but he was like, it can't work on runes alone. And I think because he worked on it because he worked on it with Magnus, that's where the magic was allowed. If he had just been a shadow hunter trying to utilize magic and runes, that's when it would have been illegal. But if they worked on it together, that's kind of obviously gave them the extra push.
And 2 points here. Did you pick up that Henry invented glitter?
No.
Yeah, Henry invented glitter. Magnus is in the laboratory for the first time, and he's looking around, and he picks up a vial, and he opens it, and he's like, oh, Henry's like, you throw that, and it reveals ghosts, right?
Oh, right.
And Magnus goes, you know, if I put this on my skin, I would shine for days. And Henry
come on, I remember that line. I didn't make the connection.
It's glitter. Henry invented glitter. Yeah.
Of course Magnus wants to be covered in glitter.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love it so much because you know he has the sequin armor too.
So that's the first like wonderful little thing. The second thing, which is just fun, is that isn't it interesting that Clary Fairchild has the power to create portals?
Yeah.
Isn't that just nice? And like Henry and like Charlotte Fairchild are, you know, like it's just nice.
I love also like let's shout out to the feminist Henry Branwell when they had a kid and they said that they were the child was going to take Charlotte's last name because she was HBIC. Her name was all powered. And she's like, you won't have a problem with them taking my name. He goes, absolutely not. Like, my wife's a badass. Like, number one. Henry Branwell, number one.
We love so much. I do. I adore Henry. Okay, so
I feel like we could talk about this forever. We just keep like spiraling.
I know we haven't even talked about Gideon and Sophie and the incident of scones.
I feel like it's almost like each episode needs to be about, it's because, you know what, this is a perfect example of, and maybe we had talked about this in the Mortal Instruments also, where it's not always about the main character. Sometimes the side characters feel like the main characters themselves. Love for Sophie and Gideon. I have, you know, and even Gabriel and Ceci, because Gabriel is such a simp for Ceci Herondale, like, as he should be.
As he should be. That's right.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I love that even Tessa says, I love that your sister keeps you in place, and she's definitely going to keep him in his place. Like, I absolutely here for it. You know, they were just the best of friends. Because you know that they were the type who would team up against Will, just because they can, for the hell of it. I love that. Sophie, you know what? I guess from the beginning of this book, because you knew Gabriel and Sophie were, like, super, like, into each other. They had those, like, secret moments in the hall where they were just, like, not even kissing. They were just, like, intensely staring at each other because it's the 1800s, holding hands against the wall. And then it was, like, Sophie had to put the wall up in book 3 because she goes, I don't know what's going on. This is a lot. I'm just going to distance myself.
Because he lives there now.
So, okay. Yeah. So that's, she's like, I have to, you know, because, kind of like a separation of church and state.
Right. Because the last time she was in that situation,
right. Her previous owner, employer, you know, did awful things to her. Mm-hmm. And, so she, like, distanced herself, and she did share that with Gabriel, which is nice, and he was just, like, so shocked. Like, it almost made more sense. I do like where she finds the scones, and, like, I was like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, he was just trying to, like, find ways to interact with her.
And Sophie's like, no.
You gave me more work.
Do you have any idea how fucking heavy this tray is that you're making me...
Like, look at, like, not even, like, a big-ass house. This is a freaking castle, it feels like. Like, I just imagine it very, like, Hogwarts / Notre Dame. Like, I kind of depict it as this all-encompassing thing. And she's like, no, that was rude. It made more work for me.
She's like, now we're going to have mice. Oh, it's so funny. And he's humiliated. And it's so funny. Oh, my God. And then, like, Bridget comes, and Bridget just is like, I'm here to clean out the scones. Oh, my God. And then, and then they get married, or they're engaged. And
I like when she calls him out on that, too. He's like, he professes this love, and when we get married, and then they finally, like... Ceci's like, okay, everybody, let's go. And then, like, Gideon tried to go. She goes, like, not you. You stay.
He's like, oh, right.
And then they're having the conversation in the room, and he's just being all presumptuous. And Sophie goes, you still haven't asked me.
Yeah.
She goes, you talked about it. You told everybody. You declared to everybody. She goes, what about me? I love them. I love them.
They're so great. They're so great. And then Sophie ascends, which is wonderful. So now Sophie is a Shadowhunter, and it's so perfect. And then that, of course, that moment is when Will says another epic line to Tessa, because Will goes outside and he talks to Magnus. And I don't know if you caught this, but Will was like, Magnus, you're leaving. Like, you didn't say goodbye to Tessa. And Magnus,
see her. Yeah, I know where you're going with that, because I started crying there, too.
Yeah, he was like, it was something like, I don't need to say...
I don't need to see... We'll see her again. We'll see each other again. And you know... he's saying it in, like, such a melancholy way that he can't... He's been around forever. Yep. You know, we know him.
And Magnus has church. And Magnus is going to New York.
New York.
Yes.
Yeah, I picked up on that. Okay, so that's how church gets to New York.
That's how church gets to New York.
I'm gonna get a cat when I get another cat. I'm gonna name him Church Cat.
Church Cat. Oh my God. Yeah. And so Will, what does Will say? Will says, Tessa, you can take a Shadowhunter name. You can have a real Shadowhunter. And Tessa's like, I can have a real... Yeah, and Will's like, of course you can have a real Shadowhunter name. You can have mine. And I was like, God, that's so good.
Or you can have your own.
Or your own.
Like, these men, These men in the 1800s, because you know what? Women are not to the Shadowhunters, women are not property. And they say that, and they even say that with her heart, with who she loves. She goes, my heart is my own. It does not belong to Jem. It does not belong to Will. It belongs to myself. I just...
So then, okay, so we talked about we talked about all the couples except for really Cecily and Gabriel, and I love them. They're so wonderful. Cecily is just, I love Gabriel, and I love Gabriel's whole storyline here. Like, Gabriel almost does like betray Charlotte, right? Like, you were very angry with Gabriel for most of this book, but then he doesn't do it, and he goes to Charlotte, and he's like, look, the consul,
I didn't send it.
Like, yeah, I didn't send the letter. The consul threatened like to take everything from me if I didn't do this. He's like, but I want to fight with you. There's nothing wrong with you, and I like that, because like everyone was going around saying like, I want to like declare myself and like fight for Charlotte. Like, she's,
oh, captain, my captain.
Yeah, like she's a leader, and like, oh, it was just so wonderful. And yeah, and Gabriel, oh, it's so funny.
But I love that line too. Like, not necessarily that line, but that part where there was just like this observation saying this loyalty, like, what is it? Like, Waylon wants power, and he assumes that having power will equate to having this crazy loyalty. And what you see happening with Charlotte, and it wasn't just the Shadowhunters. It was, everybody who was at the Institute. It was Bridget, and it was Bridget, it was Cyril, it was Sophie, it was Silent Brothers coming. You can't, that is, you can't ask for that. That comes with leadership. And that's a big conversation that I always had with my previous employer, where with different roles and different titles, people would be like either like managers, or they would have the term leaders. And the thing was, a manager was always a leader. And I would say, especially if I don't like somebody, and towards the end of my tenure there, I was very honest. I would say, I think it does a disservice calling certain people managers when they're so much more than that they're the true leaders in a managerial capacity. And then you have managers who are or you have leaders, because if you're thinking about like the hierarchy that a manager is over a leader, you have leaders who are in these positions, and they're the ones who should truly be in the higher role. And I think that's how it's depicted here, that Waylon can have all the power he wants. That doesn't mean he's a leader. He has the title, he has, all the glory that could come with it, but he's not in the true sense of the what it should come with.
Oh, that's absolutely right. That's like, respect is earned, not given. Like, gosh.
And I love, after all the bullshit that she, when I was talking about, like, this is why women just have to do it and then, like, figure it out later. She did do it. She said, fuck it. We're either going to come back from this thing unalive, so it's not going to make a difference, or we're going to come back and shit's going to hit the fan. So she just went to the clave, because at that point she knew no message was getting sent to the clave, because Josiah had that roadblock. And then when you had the whole Shadowhunters Council, everybody, I feel like that was also like his, like, shot his ego down, where he was like, no, listen to me. And everybody was like, well, we want to hear from Charlotte. And Charlotte's not here. She's doing this other thing. What does that say about her? And everybody would say, why are we here having a conversation about leadership when, like, actual automatons are coming? And so it was just that much more satisfying that I was just like, okay, and that just like, okay, child, anyway.
I feel like we need to talk about Magnus's fantastic line. You wrote down,
endure what is unbearable, and you bear it.
Yeah.
I say it with such disdain, because if I don't, I'm gonna cry. I wrote you a whole thing the other morning. I felt so bad. It was like 7 a.m, so it was 5 o'clock for you.
I love it.
Sometimes I forget. I'm like, I'm glad she knows not to check WhatsApp right away.
I love it. I love getting stuff like that. Magnus is full of little gems of wisdom in this book. And this is one of those lines that I don't know, like Cassie Clare has some sort of magic, right? Like there are some lines that are just
to be in that cottage with her and Holly. I would sign up for a raffle.
Oh my God. I just don't understand how you can like write stuff like that. Like, and it's so true. It's just so true. And it's applicable to like everybody, to everybody in this situation too. Like, I know we talk a lot about on the podcast about revisiting, things can hit hard the first time around and it hits and you're like, oh my gosh. And then if you revisit it later in life or at different points in your life, the things that you're revisiting can hit differently based on new lived experiences. And this line is just so, it's not one person can say, I truly believe not one person can say they don't relate to that line. It's so beautiful.
In whatever capacity it relates to you, it doesn't necessarily have to be about loss. But, whenever, we kind of become dismissive on social media and, you're like, oh man, we're going through it. But in the truest sense of the word, we're all going through it in some capacity. So if there's any line that doesn't hit you in this book, if there's any line that hits you in this book, it would be this one. It would be that one.
Oh my gosh, Magnus. And I also just love Magnus. He's like, I was in the rabies section, like, Woolsey bites. I'm concerned. and he says it really deadpan. And then everyone else is just like,
I love Magnus. Like, I was at the bookstore the other day and I was like, oh my God, there's a Magnus book. How did you not tell me? And you go, well, if you want to read it. And I was like, why are we going to act like I'm not going to want to read it?
There's actually two. There's Magnus, his backstory, like the Magnus Bane Chronicles, and then there's Magnus and Alec together in the Scrolls of Magic series. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's fun.
It's my VIP. I love Magnus.
Oh, okay. So after, we need to talk about Tessa turning into the angel. This is another instance of Tessa, like, as you said, I agree with you, like, Tessa does the stuff. She does the work. She makes the sacrifice. As you said, she wasn't sure how this was going to turn out. And it turned out to be very sad for the reader, if you're a savvy reader, because this angel that has been, like, keyed to her life to protect her is the same angel that Valentine Morgenstern summons and imprisons and then uses his blood on Clary and Jace. So this poor fucking angel has spent so long imprisoned twice, and then we know that this angel uses a seraph blade to unalive himself. And that is just also so fucking sad.
To go through and endure everything that angel has done for arguably centuries.
Yeah.
It's
sad. It's just like one of those little details that, like, you're like, oh, that's sad. But Tessa is, okay. Before this, the three silent brothers answer Charlotte's call. Brother Enoch, Brother Zechariah, and Brother Micah. Brother Micah dies very quickly. And then the reveal about Brother Zechariah isn't until, like, in the middle of the battle, when the automaton, like, has him, is, like, holding him up, and his hood is thrown back.
Okay, that's what I was wondering, because Charlotte says, like, oh, these, we have guests or whatever, and then she realizes that the silent brothers are there, and then she says the three names. And that's why I was wondering, I go, how does nobody put that Zechariah's gem? So their hoods were up this whole time, and it's when Gem's hood falls back. That was, and Tessa's the first one to see it during the battle, straight up freezes. Same. And then, of course, like, she's going down like, oh my God, my fiance, she's not knowing the details, because now she's thinking, oh my God, my fiance's still alive. Oh my God, I slept with his best friend, even though I love him. I mean, again, very
Pearl Harbor moment all over again. Like, shit, I'm in a battle and this is what, and then, you know, she shakes out of it real quick because she has to. And same thing happens with Will. Will's like, fuck, man. like, and you know, I think there's a part where he feels his scar or something. And he goes like he's confused for a second because he doesn't know.
It's just so sad. And then for that whole battle, they're fighting like side by side, and Will is like joking with him and being like, you know, nice stick, and like it's a staff, and like they're having this like banter. And it's like they're back to back, and it's like old times, right? But like,
and then there's like some insight to Jem's thoughts of like, this is the last time, and you're like, oh no.
And Will reflects on that too. He's like, you know, if I would have known that this was the last time, and like that, and I feel like that's an important part of this book too. Is like the characters kind of realize, like looking back, like the enormity of things, like especially with Jem. It's like, well, this is the last time that I was with Jem here, and like here and here. It's just so sad. But
I mean, that goes with like all those quotes to say, if you had known your last time would have been the last time, like what would you have done differently?
Oh my God. So Henry is paralyzed here. We learn that Henry is paralyzed. Magnus kind of heals him and like does what he can, but like Chaol, you know, magic can only do so much. And he is paralyzed, and he kind of like builds himself a bath chair, and his like life now is trying to like make his like, you know, a wheelchair pretty much. So we have that with Henry, and Charlotte we know is pregnant. The first baby is going to be Charles Buford. And Jem. But before this, Tess is the angel, and she burns with heavenly fire, which is, you know. And, you know, she destroys Mortmain, and, you know, good riddance. And because what did he do? He took Pixuses and put the Pixus in the automatons and animated the automatons with actual demons that were unstoppable to Seraph Blades, and were going to wipe out Shadowhunters. And Mortmain was going to breed Tessa to create a new race of Shadowhunters. That was the plan, to get back about Shade, and he needed Tessa to turn into his dad so that he could get the spell to animate the automatons. That was the whole overarching plot. So we mentioned Jem and Tessa's like farewell speech, like, and their meeting, and did we talk about Will and Jem and their parting?
No.
And, oh my God, that whole scene.
Because he was in like the training room, and Jem was just like heartbroken. He goes, I didn't think it was going to affect me, but like I know like two people that I love so much are like basically down the hall, and Jem is and Will's just kind of like trying to detach. And Jem shows up, and he's like, what are you doing here? I thought you were just going to come say bye to Tessa. And Jem says like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You're my Parabatai. Yeah. Like you can't honestly think that I was not going to come say bye to you.
Oh my gosh. And then they have like this whole, it's like, you know, keep my violin oiled and like clean, and like maybe one day there'll be somebody, and he's like, you know, I won't be around. And Will's like, you know, fuck you. You'll be around.
Yeah. Or like, hey, I keep this little box by my bed that keeps the yen fin and he was like, again, like, what the fuck? Like, are you really trying, like, here's a constant reminder of like, just, you're not here. And he goes, then he like went through the importance of like how it used to be his mother's, and it was this patron saint, and just, and that the saint basically looked out for others the way, you know, nobody was going to look after the mortals or something. So she took on that responsibility to look after them instead of transcending into heaven.
Oh God. And then, yeah. And then we have Will and Tessa. We have the epic Christmas party, of course, that London is famous for. That is, you know, mentioned over and again. And then Will's proposal, Magnus's goodbye, and then we have, basically the meeting of the parents in Wales, where Will introduces Gabriel as Lightworm, and we love that.
I love that.
We love that. And we get to see Will and Ceci's mom and dad. But then we go straight into the epilogue, and we've talked about the epilogue. I don't know what else I can say about this epilogue other than like I was like shaking as I was listening to it, and I have a stuffed animal cow that I was like holding like this, and I was like holding him and like rocking back and forth because Will's like deathbed scene is too much for me, and the reunion scene with Tessa and Jem being so insecure and so unsure and so timid, but also like he's so young. That's the thing, like he's so young in like human years, but he's so old in like supernatural years,
right?
It's just like this beautiful mix, and like he's like young and like happy and healthy and just like
well they both are. They're kind of, it's that whole frozen in time thing that happens with anything in fantasy and supernatural, which is a huge reason why there's so much moving around, because they can't be, in that, which is also so nice where she's like, see the world with me. There's still so much to see, and they're just so, like, I understand his insecurity because, here he's been loving her for over 100 years, and he also knows that how deeply in love she was with his best friend. And when she's still wearing his jewelry that she gave them for like various anniversaries, and he's already so like intimidated by that great love. And it was almost like when she pulls out his family ring, he had no idea that because he's just looking at the pearl, like the black pearl bracelet and knowing how attached she, how close she keeps Will, he's like, in his head, he's probably like, I can't compete with that. And this goes back to Clockwork Prince, where I was like, he's just so can't believe that his dream girl wants him back. And then when he sees that she still has his family ring, and she told you, she was like, I didn't tell you because I didn't want you to have some sort of sense of expectation or obligation to me, because I understood where you were amongst the silent brothers, and I didn't want you to put me in this thing of, push me away either. It was just so beautiful. And it was really like that moment, I think he realized also, oh, I knew she loved me, but I didn't, like, to know that her depth of her love was as deep as it was with Will's, albeit in a different way, because he is a different person. And that's said, in the book too. Like, you could have, instead of, she has two great loves. She loves Will the way she loves Will, and she loves Jem the way she loves Jem. And they're both very different, but they're just as deep. I think it's just, and it's so beautifully conveyed. It isn't just like oh, I love you. I mean, their interactions, and I say they as in all three of them.
Yeah.
Between, and every capacity, between Tessa and Will, between Will and Jem, between Tessa and Jem, everybody, between Will, it's all there. Couldn't they have just been in a polyamorous relationship, and she could have been like a walking uterus instead of her mortmain for both of them, and then like I would have been fine. I have never wanted three people in a relationship more than I do the three of them.
Who are you in love with?
Fuck you.
Who are you in love with?
I don't know. I almost feel like Tessa really got the best of both worlds, right? She got like, Will for all of his mortal life, and then she almost, she got Jem for his immortal life, and then some. She really got the best of both worlds. It was almost like Jem waited out, and now he's like, my turn.
That's not the answer.
Not really.
That's not an answer.
No, I don't want to answer. I don't want to answer. I don't know how. I want to say Will. You know what it is? I go back to how I was at the beginning of Clockwork Angel, because Clockwork Angel, I was like, Jem. And at the beginning of Clockwork Prince, I knew
whenever Jem was on screen, I was wholeheartedly in love with Jem. And then whenever Will was up, I was wholeheartedly in love with Will. God. Right now I'm going to just say Will, but I feel like that's going to change the more I read.
It's so hard.
It's so different. It's so different. Ugh. Yeah. Like, it's not just, with the Bat Boys, everybody is like, everybody kind of ranks them, right? And everybody has one that they lean towards. I understand. I mean, I don't, not in real life, but based on the book, I understand where Tessa was like, how do you choose?
Imagine both of them standing in front of you. Like, no. Like, I could not pick. I don't think I could pick.
I don't think I could. I turn away. I turn away and say, this isn't fair. And I would choose my, I'm like, if I can't have both, I don't want either. I'd be super dramatic about that. Like that.
Yeah. And I will say, like, Will Herondale is my book boyfriend. Like, I love him so much.
Is he one of your top book boyfriends?
Yeah. He, ever since I met him, I say, ever since I met Will Herondale, he has been one of my, like, top book boyfriends. He's just he's so wonderful. Okay. So, Jess, do you like this book? Do you like this series?
Yes.
Well, obviously,
yes. I don't know. I feel like sometimes if I like want a good cry, like, when you just need something cathartic, you're like, I don't know what's setting me off, but I need something to set me off. I usually put on P.S. I Love You, and I haven't done that in years because I just know how I get from like the first 2 minutes in. Through the whole movie, because it's devastating. This is that book where you're like, I need a cry. I need to, like, when we started this episode, maybe even before we started recording, I go, why is this hurting as much as Kingdom of Ash? And I sobbed through the entirety of Kingdom of Ash. But it's so different. It's so tragic. And when you presented the, I'll say like spoilers prior to reading, I knew that. I also knew that I had like a book hangover from the first one because I didn't start Clockwork Prince right away because I was still processing that Jem was Zachariah. Knowing things it's that whole bigger picture thing. And to make that connection, so like every chapter, every read, it was like, wait, but we also know this in the future. So it just becomes that much more devastating the entire time. It's two very emotional reads for two very different reasons. Because then in a way, this still isn't a happily ever after. Because it's like Kingdom of Ash, spoiler, Minorian, where they're going to have a life, but at some point there's going to be an end again. Or when it comes to the court of Terrasen, everybody's going to have an end at a certain point. It's all just devastatingly heartbreaking.
I feel like, I think I told you, like this 3-book series hits very hard for me, in a comparable but very different way, like as you're saying, than Throne of Glass, because like the sobbing that I'm doing in this book, especially Clockwork Princess, is a very like real, kind of like real life. Like these are real people. I feel like I know these people, right? Like these are real people that like for the most part like don't have like supernatural ability. Not really, right? Like not really. Like Will dies. He becomes an old man and he dies. Like, it's just, they're not Fae warriors that are 500 years old going out and leading armies and stuff. They're like they're teenagers, like it's a real story that I feel like I can take and like read and like cry about like real life things instead of like a super like magic thing.
Well, and that makes sense. I mean, with the exception of runes, like you said, I mean, even
with Bridget and Sophie and Sarah. You have people who are just, they're not Shadowhunters initially. And they're trained. It's like if anybody went through some training, okay, here are your self-defense skills. Put them to the test. If you ever have to use them, you have the skill set. And there's something to be said there. And I mean, we won't even broach the topic of the whole gem of it all, of living while you're dying. That's its own storyline. But it makes sense why it's relatable.
Yeah, it is. It's very relatable. So, Jess, 9 books in. Not that I'm asking you to continue your Shadowhunter journey. I'm just saying, like, in general, where would you want to go? Because we need to take a break, obviously. Because anywhere we go, we'd have a big hangover from this.
Yeah, here's my thing. Because I think I said yesterday, Magnus. And then it's like, well, we could also like explore Jem's journey through the Silent Brother. There's also other things with the Shadowhunter Academy and like exploring Simon's ascension. And now I didn't even want to touch LA. I was just like, Magnus!
Well, that was my other thing. I was like, okay, well, I'm going to give her all these pages now. Like she might want to go with Jem and Tessa, out to LA. So we've got all of these options for her.
So I guess do I want to keep going? Absolutely. My 2-part question would be, which way would be the best to go? And secondly, I remember I had said with reading the Mortal Instruments, and then when I was starting back into the Infernal Devices, I said, you know what? I don't want to take a break because there's a lot of little things that with the Mortal Instruments, I said there's a lot of little things that I completely forgot about because we took a break after the first 3 books. And you said, well, definitely we won't do that with the Infernal Devices. So I just don't know where that leaves us here. Like, do we take a break? Or do I not take a break and start piecing everything together? Because there's a lot of things with the Mortal Instruments that you were reminding me of where I go, I feel like it was one of those school tests where you remember everything for what you need to remember it. And you just like, okay, moved on to the next. So I don't know if like that, where we go with this.
Well, I don't know. So I was thinking about this and I sent you a website that has every single Cassandra Clare story. I mean, individual story. Like in the novellas, this website has taken out the individual stories and put them in like chronological order as they happen. So like Magnus and Jem have some stuff, and then Infernal Devices, and then there's the other series, and I'll tell you about that. And then it goes like that. So we could do that, or we could approach it a different way. So how about, if you're listening to this, bless you for making it this far. And how about y'all tell us where you would like us to go? Do you want us to go to, and here are your options. Do you want us to go to LA and do the Dark Artifices? Do you want us to go with Simon to the Shadowhunter Academy? Do you want us to follow Jem on Ghosts of the Shadow Market? Or do you want us to go to Magnus's background with the Magnus Bane Chronicles? Or should we go to Magnus and Alec in their standalone? I think we would have to look at the order for this one, but I think we could absolutely do the first one here. So we have 5 options. Listeners, please tell us where you would like us to go. I'm looking at you. You look overwhelmed.
I looked overwhelmed, but I'm also thinking about when these episodes are airing, and I don't know if I want to wait 2 months to wait for you to hear where somebody wants us to read.
Well, Jess, where, based on those 5 options, where would you like want to go? Just like, where's your gut say?
I think I need some fun. I even told you, I said, I guess we could announce it now that now that this episode's in December. I was like, I need Shadow in the Ember and some smut because I need something light. I have been crying all week. I sent pictures of Laura and she goes, you look emotionally exhausted. I go, good, because I am. That's exactly how I feel. And
we received arcs for A Shadow in the Ember, and we're very excited. It's our first arc ever as a podcast, and we're kind of like still squealing about it. So I feel like I might just I need a break because I don't need to cry. Yeah, I think I need some smut. I need some smut.
Little bit of smut, and then we will see. We have 5 options. We'll see
like,
where we
go. So, like, if Magnus is fun, is like his stuff devastating? Because I feel like I can't. You know what? Let's nix one of them. Let's not do Gem's stuff yet because I emotionally, I don't think I could handle anything with Gem right now. So that takes out, I think.
Now
that takes out the Dark Artifices and his standalone for just for a moment, because I just emotionally I'm gonna cry, and you're gonna tell me there's nothing sad about this. This is good. I feel like you're gonna be like, this is good. They're together. Things are happy. Like, Gem's gonna see Emma, and I'm just gonna be still holding on to like 1876 Gem, and it's gonna hurt.
Well, you bring that up. I saw in your notes, Emma has a sword, and that's...
Yes! I said that because they're talking about the sword. Cortana. And I was like, I know that sword!
Cortana, we met Cortana, the sword that Emma has, and now we know where it came. Oh my God. Okay, we can talk about Shadowhunters now because Jess is 9 books in for a long time, and we have... So let's cap this one. I know there's so much that we could talk about this. You know, we haven't talked about a lot, but you know, the beauty of Shadowhunters is that we can always dive back into any of the stories and just talk about it, especially with the novellas. There's so much to pull from there. So, okay. So, Jess, you're a fan. I'm a fan. So, not only have you been proven wrong about crying, another author making you cry, you had said that you did not realize that another author could describe love the way that Sarah had, that like made you feel. And that happened here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I have nothing else to say except, you know, I just was just crying, you know, and it's just so beautifully portrayed, and it's something so special. You know, I think I just said, like, I love love. I think it's something so special in its truest, purest form. I think love can be a very special thing if it's healthy, if it's not toxic, if there's communication. And I think because of my respect and appreciation for love and what it is, I'm not that girl who's just like, I love love so much that you just find me in and out of relationships because I'm just so enamored by it, because that's not what it is. I think I feel like it's this huge, big responsibility that you share with other people.
Oh, that was really lovely. Oh, look at Jess throwing out all these beautiful quotes. Gosh. And I've got nothing. I'm just like, yeah, I'm sad. I'm real sad all the time.
I'm just sad all the time. These are just hitting all the feels. Ugh.
Will Herondale hitting all the feels. Gemma Carstairs, how you be so good. Be such a good man. Yeah, that's all I've got for right now. I'm emotionally drained. I can't wait to go to bed. I've been crying all day. Main character energy. I was crying outside while I was on a walk. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. So I think we need to cut it here, or our editor is going to yell at us already. This is a long one, but we appreciate everybody who's listening to us on this journey. Feel free to give us a follow on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. Feel free to reach out, and we appreciate you all. Thanks for your patience, and we'll talk to y'all soon.
Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.